Every year in Metro Vancouver, thousands of homes are reduced to rubble. Perfectly good houses demolished to make way for new development. We sure love new in the society. But a new alliance is pushing back. The Building Relocation and Deconstruction Association of BC says it's time to stop treating homes as disposable. They're calling on governments, developers, and the public to rethink demolition and embrace smarter, greener alternatives. Joining me now is Michael Weeb, Director at the Building Relocation and Deconstruction Association of BC and a former Vancouver City Councillor as well. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jeff.
Lots to talk about here. What prompted the creation of the association, first of all?
So I guess over the last 10 years, there's been a lot of policy development. So Adam, one of the other directors from Unbuilders, he had been in my office 5 years ago when I was a city councillor trying to update the policy at City of Vancouver. And you're seeing it in Victoria, Portland, around the world. We're seeing changes in this where how do we not just take these homes, 2,700 homes in Vancouver, 3,500 when you count Capital District, are being demolished. And you're seeing provincial policy right now that's really pushing for the multifamily, which is something we need. And as a city councillor who voted for most housing of any city councillor in one term, I understand the need of updating our communities and growing and building density. But there are some really beautiful homes that we need to protect. We also need to look at, can we take salvage some of the material in there? There's a lot of good wood. A lot of the homes 1970 and older have great first growth wood. And so let's look at that and let's use highest and best use for these properties. And that's our goal.
So how many homes, you were saying about 2,700 homes a year
in Metro
roughly?
Vancouver alone.
So 2,700. So let's say you multiply that by 10 for 1 decade. That's 27,000 homes.
And
gone.
we're going to see probably a 15 to 20% increase in that number because of the new multifamily, the new duplex zoning. So more and more single-family homes will be torn down. There's also a lot of great wood in some of the multifamily that we're starting to see come down. And people are starting to see our industry. They're starting to understand it a little bit better. We had the little home, right, the little school in Kitsilano that was to be demolished, and the community spoke up. And then they said, is there not a better option? And sure enough, they connected with Glenn, who's one of the directors from Renewal, and they were able to find a way to move that over to the Squamish Nation, and it is now a language school for Halkaminum, which is a very important. And so that community felt so much better losing their heritage, but understanding that it had another use. Another great example last night in Coquitlam, a family had created their dream home, and their area had come ready for multifamily, and they moved it 8 blocks last night because they wanted the home. They loved the home they had, and so they bought another property and moved their home 8 blocks. So some of the homes are being demolished are 7 years old, 10 years old, because that area has changed in zoning or new rapid transit's gone around that station. And so this is a really important thing at this time because we're seeing such a change in our densification for our neighborhoods.
I remember we did a reno at our house about 9 years ago. My house was built in about 1980, and they took the ceiling out, and there was still a 2x6 construction. The reno guys were pointing, they go, no one does that anymore. Like they're calling their colleagues over to show how they had put it in, and I didn't totally understand it, but you can tell things are done differently, that's for sure, in regards to the wood even being used. So in the case of a home, let's just say it's going to get torn down or potentially could be torn down. What would a member of your organization do in regards to assessing it? What kind of things could be beyond the home being picked up and moved? That I understand. But what kind of things are you looking for then?
So normally looking at the wood, right? So we want to pull the wood out of the home. And you can pull out 5,000 square feet sometimes in a good home. And so a good example today, we had the City of Victoria come speak at a conference. We had a conference today, 150 people in person, 150 people online, and they range from all around the world that are leading this work. So we're in there today, and Victoria talked about a lot of homes, people are like, I can't, because they have a policy that people have to pay money to put a deposit down. And so you have to look if your home can be deconstructed or removed before you get your deposit back. And so a bunch of the homes that person's like, I can't, there's no way we're getting that much wood out of this property. We go in there as an association, and it's amazing how much wood. Some of these homes that look like they're falling apart, the roofs collapse. Once we get in there, it's dry. The wood is great, and we can pull out that wood, and now we can be building sheds. We can be building different projects. And we're looking now, if we're looking at prefab, we can create prefab walls, and there's no association there today that showcase that. We can now put those into brand new buildings again.
So let's say a developer wants to tear down a few homes, they're going to put up some townhouses.
Yeah.
Is it worth their time to call it one of your members or your organization Because I would think two things that are really valuable for a developer would be, is this going to save me money? And will this delay the process of the development itself?
Yeah.
Even with what you're saying, this would still potentially save money or at least maybe raise some money for a developer, and it won't take up too much time that it delays the process of actually starting building the new project?
Yeah, so there's a lot of policy, and in the policy, we just created the municipal action plan that talks about a bunch of the policy. One of the policies is that if you do deconstruction, you can start 2 weeks earlier. So you could get a bit of a leeway on a regular demo eviction. So there are policies that some cities are doing around the region to kind of speed it up. Another example that was brought today was 2 homes where they bid the exact same as a regular deconstruction organization or demolition company. However, one of the homes, they would get a bit of a rebate because if you can salvage the wood and sell it to an organization like Habitat for Humanity, you get a charitable receipt for that. And so that helps to make it more equal. And so they could actually underbid the home because one of the 2 homes wasn't salvageable. They were able to pull the wood out, but you couldn't move it. The other house they could move. And when you move a house, you're then selling that to the buyer. And so they could then actually be cheaper than an organization that's just going to come and throw both homes into the waste. And right now, construction waste is a third of our landfill, and we all know that our landfill is not going to last, right? Mm-hmm. That lease is running up. We need to look at other options. So This is a great example of how not only was it more sustainable, it was done in the same time period, and it was actually a reduction in cost because they got a tax break.
Okay. So in regards to pre-demolition of older homes, so you'd have to do an assessment? How would that work?
Yeah, so they would call in a group, right? They would call in one of the organizations that are in the association. Mm-hmm. They would come down and do an assessment and say, this home is good for relocation, which is about 20% of the homes. This home is good for deconstruction, or this one, we could salvage a little bit of it, but it would be tough for us to hit the recycling threshold. So we would look at most of the homes. Most homes, 1970 or older, you'll be able to get enough wood out there to meet all the thresholds of most of the cities that are doing these new policies.
What kind of homes are typically good candidates for relocation? Because you're saying 70 or older. I'm thinking, would a Vancouver special be good for relocation? I don't know.
Yeah, you should look. We have a new website coming out, and it's actually up today. And one of the things that's amazing on it is a lot of these 1940s and 50s, right?
Yeah,
are perfect candidates, right? They slab on grade, we take it on top. They've got these wood floors, and people look at it and go, there's no way that's not a tear down. But no, it's a perfect home to be relocated. And a great example is in Port Moody. They took 19 homes and they moved them to a First Nation on the Sunshine Coast. Mm-hmm. And then they built new first floors and added these on the second floor. You couldn't tell that the homes were moved over, but that new tenant is getting a rental home that's affordable because sometimes the drop cost is less than $200 a square foot. So if you wanted to buy one of these homes and you live in a different community, you can buy it for under $200 a square foot for some of these homes. And you're getting hardwood floors, you're getting tiled kitchens, and some of these homes might be less than 7 years old. And so you're getting a good home. But 1930s, 1940s, these are great homes that we could pick up. The Vancouver specials are slab on grade, so they work really well to grab the top floor and move them. Those are the best candidates, right? You've got these hardwood floors and these homes. We have so many in Vancouver that are great candidates. And then you're also seeing sometimes the best thing to do is to move into an infill, which would be take the heritage home or the beautiful home and move it to the corner of the property. You move it off the property, create the multifamily, and then put it back. There's a great example happening right now in Victoria for this. There's a couple in Vancouver. So the Mount Pleasant plan had a lot of these where they basically would take the heritage home off, build the density, create the underground parking, and then bring the heritage home back onto the property and then fit it in with the development. So this is called infill housing, which a lot of these properties and organizations that work with us would do.
What do you think it is? What is it about society where we are so fascinated with new? And it seems to be a North American fascination. I think in other, and I'm broadly generalizing, but in other continents, Europe, Asia, old isn't viewed as old. Old isn't viewed as get rid of it. But in North America, we seem to have this fascination with new, always new.
I think that's changing. I really do. I think you're seeing the amount of vintage shops pop up. I think you're seeing a generation that would love to have hardwood floors, to touch the feel, the smell. I renovated a 1909 home. It feels so different. So I think that was the case, but I'm seeing a new generation here in Vancouver and a lot of other people that reach out to us is that I want my kids to play on wood. And I can grab one of these homes cheaper than I could ever build with vinyl. So I think we are seeing a shift where people want real materials around them again, and this offers that.